Welcome everyone to our webinar today covering Doc Reader for Canvas. We're excited to let you know that it is finally here, and we're going to give you a quick overview and let you see it in action. Alongside me today is Paul Stisser, our Director of North America Sales, and Ginger Dewey, our Educational Development Manager. And during this presentation, Ginger's going to give you a demo of some of our tools, while Paul is going to actually show you Doc Reader in Canvas. So if you're not familiar with ReadSpeaker, let me just kind of give you a quick synopsis of who we are and what we do. So at the very top, you're going to see our listen button, and literally using ReadSpeaker is as easy as clicking the listen button. We are a text-to-speech company, and we do offer the best voices on the market. And we also offer several accessibility tools. And like I mentioned before, Ginger will show just a few of those in action later in this presentation. We have over 20 years of experience. We're used by over 1,500 institutions globally. We help everyone, not just a few. And we'll touch on that when we talk about universal design for learning. That's kind of what we're mentioning when we talk about helping all. And our products are easy to implement and use. And that's very important to mention, because if it's not easy to use or implement, people are just not going to use it. What are the benefits of text-to-speech? This is just a small sampling of those benefits. We're talking about improving reading comprehension, word recognition, increased information recall. And we do want to mention, that subset of students with disabilities, it helps them stay at that peer level in their subject matter. Another benefit is improving self-esteem, motivation, and self-confidence. When you empower the student and give them a way that helps them learn in their best method, that's improving all of those and more. This is one of Paul's favorite slides, or his images, and I've kind of gotten attached to it, that I like to use in a lot of our presentations. And when we talk about universal design for learning, and we talk about helping all students, not just a few, I think this image really encompasses that frame of mind. If you look at the image, let's call him the instructor, is telling his student, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam to climb the tree. I don't know about you, but I would love to see the fish be able to climb the tree. And when we think about kind of having a blanket solution or a blanket statement for these students, they're not all going to be able to pass this exam because we're not giving them the right tools for them. This is another example of that universal design for learning. You have let's call him an instructor again. He's shoveling the stairs for the students. But if he just shoveled the ramp, all the students would be able to enter the building. And that's kind of encompassing that accessibility, inclusivity, and that universal design for learning. It's being able to provide students a method of learning that can be customized for that individual method of learning. So Paul, how does it work?
Well, Doc Reader is very similar to the web reader integration inside of Canvas. It's a theme editor, or basically a plugin, a global Java plugin, to where it's copy and pasted into the editor. Doc Reader icons will appear next to supported Canvas files. It's basically how easy it is. So this is an image of the ReadSpeaker Doc Reader inside of Canvas files. So if you look at the files is accessed, and inside of that, the supported files, or documents basically, will appear a ReadSpeaker player button with a sheet of paper, basically symbolizing the ability to press, click, and listen to audio, but also the study skills component that come with the Doc Reader component. So for a instructor or a student to utilize this feature, what they would do is they would click on the icon, and then what that is going to do is it's going to open up in another tab. And as that document is being fetched, technically, it is going to be, it's going to align with your cookies that you have in place. And that cookies is going to support your learning preference that you have in place. So in here, as you can see, that we have a PowerPoint document or file that is supported. And in here, you can see that we have a layout to where in there, you can jump from full screen view or a table of contents and how that is supported there. You can also see the headers of that and how that is supported there, and how you could jump from page to page with that. And as you're going from page to page, once again, ReadSpeaker is proactively pre-developing and creating text-to-speech for that. So when you're ready to go in and press, click, and listen, you can go ahead and do that. So what you can see is now we've jumped to page 6, and there it's on tutoring. Basically, what you have now is you're in the layout mode, and in that, you can take a look at what the existing document is. But what we're going to do is I'm going to try and follow along the player of how it is. So if you look next to where it says page 6 of 8, it gives you the layout of what the document is. To the right is the player button, which then would allow you to press, click, and listen. So you can go in and press, click, and listen, and it would read to you what this page is, or you can go in and highlight specific what you want to listen to. So it could be the first tab, or it could be the entire document. As you're also looking into that, you get into the additional functionality that ReadSpeaker is offering. It could be a dictionary word lookup, or you could also translate this document into an additional language, one of the languages that we support.
Depending on the institution, there may be face-to-face or virtual tutoring available.
So it's a terrific example of how you're just streaming the audio, you're clicking and listening. You don't have to worry about an MP3 file download or managing the file. Once again, today's generation of learners, we are streamers. And what you're doing is you're streaming the audio right there. However, there is additional functionality in there. Next to the player button is a pause button and a stop button if you wish to do that. Then not finally, but one of the additional tools is layout. So we're in the layout mode, which is your traditional view of the PDF. If you move to the right just a little bit more, that is the text mode. If you click on this, what this does is it's teachers will call it all different things. When I was an educator, it's called chunking. You would chunk your content. You would pull out the image, which can be distracting to speak to students who are ADD, ADHD, or it also separates the image from the content. So it's easier to press, click, and listen, and follow along as you highlight. Inside the text mode, once again, those are based on your cookies. So that is going to align to your learning preference that you may have. So if your font, if you wish to enlarge it, and I know my colleague Ginger is going to talk a little bit more about this as she goes into the expanded toolbar, because she is an expert in this. But what this is this is an example of the learning preference of the end user to where they can just press, click, and listen. So this really symbolizes the ReadSpeaker doc reader inside of Canvas and the ease of offering and deploying it, and how it provides that multimodal learning experience. The next component that I'm going to pass to Ginger Dewey with is really going to go into the study skills component that also goes along with the doc reader tool.
And Paul,
Ginger?
before Ginger jumps into that, can you explain just really quickly in terms of implementing this particular product into an existing ReadSpeaker Canvas environment, how easy that is and what somebody would need to do in order to do that?
So if you're a ReadSpeaker client who's presently using WebReader, it is extremely easy to just go in and update your script. You already understand how easy it is to add ReadSpeaker. Basically, all we're doing is adding just a little bit more, technically JavaScript, into the script. And you would just need to update your script. I know we're going to be updating WebReader to 3.6 and new clients. It would be an ideal time to look to add DocReader to that component. DocReader is considered a separate product. So there is a very small cost to it. But it's very easy to add if it's something that you wish, and if you wish to evaluate in your sandbox, you can easily do that. But once again, it's extremely easy of just updating your existence. It's cut and paste. I've had people tell me it's a 3-minute task to implement to where you're dynamically supporting files.
Great. And Paul, are there any types of documents that this will not work on?
Well, that's a tough question. I've actually had that 3 times today, believe it or not. What kind of files will not work? On the ReadSpeaker doc reader page, we do talk about the files that we do support. In this day and age, as we migrate from emergency learning to really hybrid and online learning, it is the best practices for it to be a properly tagged document. The ReadSpeaker AI will predict specific things. However, if it's a saved image from a teacher's iPhone that they've uploaded and there's nothing accessible about the document, in this current stage of DocReader, it would not tag that document. It would need to go ahead and do that. If it is a saved image as a PDF, it can't do that miracle. That would have to be OCR'd.
Right. And again, when we think about accessibility too, we talk about, having good design in your coursework. So that's something to always keep in mind when you're creating content, to make sure that it is accessible. Ginger, I'm going to hand it over to you. And we've talked about different kind of tools within ReadSpeaker. And as Paul mentioned, you're going to kind of show us all of your knowledge when it comes to those in DocReader.
First off, I would like to say that if you're working on a small device, you may want to close off that sidebar so you have more space. And as Paul alluded to earlier, there is an expansion to this toolbar. And when we expand it, we see a mass of tools. And one of the first things is our settings. And with our settings, we make things comfortable to us. Like I like to use an underline for my sentence and a blue color. I could change my text colors, my font size, my text, all these changes. But a couple of other things that are very important here is Paul was showing you some of the ways you can change pages. We also have an automatic page flip. And by using that, you don't have to worry about changing pages. The next page will automatically load. Another thing is remembering this toolbar state up here. And that means when we select yes, whatever we have when we leave a document, the next document will open with that same arrangement of tools. So having it remember it and having that lower toolbar expanded, you see all these power tools. And then we always want to close automatically our pop-up so it doesn't get in our way. A few tools are the page mask, which is nothing more than cutting a hole in a sheet of paper and pushing it up and down on a paper textbook. But our electronic version lets us make this mask larger or smaller. We don't have to find that new piece of paper to get the smaller mask. The reading ruler is like a note card. Again, you can make it larger or smaller and push it up and down on your document. I'm going to come back to these power tools in just a moment, but you could download it to MP3 and transfer it to your MP3 device so that you can listen to things on the go. You can download or print the document. If you don't like the voice, you can change to another voice. Let's listen to a UK voice.
Your teacher or instructor may provide assistance outside of classes.
And as you can see, we have both US English, UK English, Australian English. So if you really prefer one of those accents, then those are available. In fact, Kathy, you said your son preferred, which one was it, the British or the Australian?
The British, just to break up the monotony of having classes online, especially when everything went virtual. It just broke up that monotony. So, I mean, again, Paul mentioned learner preferences, and these tools can just be used for anybody. I mean, it just helps somebody, focus a little bit more.
That's very true. Now, let's look at what I call the real power tools, and those are our highlighters. And highlighters are so important to everyone. In fact, most people, when you're on a paper textbook, like to use 3 colors: a color for vocabulary, one for questions, and one for it's important, or they use sticky notes and colors and things like that to mark things up. Well, with our highlighter, we have 4 colors and we have a pointer. And let's say tutoring's a vocabulary word and I want to use the blue color. I could select blue and highlight it. But if I'm going on down my page or document, I would have to keep coming back up here to this bar. So let's use our pointer. And let's say this is very important. So I'm going to mark it in green. And this part down here, I don't really understand. I'm going to mark it in red. Well, just so that we have all of our colors, I'm going to mark description in yellow. Now, all of that's great if we are not colorblind, but what about that colorblind student? We have the ability to show borders. Yellow is always an underline, blue is dashes, green is dots, and red is solid. Now, it's great that we can see these colors, but they're out on the document, so we'd have to page through the document like you would have to page through a textbook. So we make it easier for you. Let's collect them. Always collect the entire document, just in case you have highlights elsewhere, because like what Paul was talking about, your settings are in your cookies and cache, your highlights are there also. If you change browsers or change devices, you've lost them. So always collect everything. You can collect by color or position. You can show or not show the borders and the colors. If you only want to collect up your vocabulary, for us that was blue, we can uncheck the others and then collect. But I want to see everything. So I'm going to check them all and do collect and download. I have to say where I want it, and I want it on my desktop. I can give it a name, but we're just going to let that name sit for right now. And there's our highlights. And as you can see, we've got everything we need. Well, there were a couple other things to do with highlights. Let's say you're the instructor and you want your students to pull out important pieces of information. Before class, you could go in and highlight your document, and you're using your computer, and then you could hide the highlights. Talk to them about it, get that information from them. And once you have, show them your highlights and explain why they're important. You only want to do this once. All of those are great study tools. Kathy?
It's a lot of great information. And again, great tools that students can use for those study skills. I do want to share our contact information here. And so, as Paul mentioned, we can provide you a free sandbox to test this out. We can do a personal demo if you've got a team of people at your institution that would like to see it in action and get further information. We're here to answer those questions. There's also our website that is specific to Canvas and our integration with Canvas. Feel free to look at that, see some videos, and also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're always posting more information, videos, and conferences we may be at, webinars we're giving. So again, take a time to look at this information. Email us for anything, any question, and we'll get back to you. Again, this is very easy to use. It's very easy to implement. And as Paul mentioned, it is an extra product add-on to your current web reader integration. And so feel free to reach out to your sales rep for pricing information as well on that. But again, no question is too small. And we appreciate you watching this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.